This video is brought to you by Props for Practice. Enter to win free block and strap set at yogatraveler.net/yogaprops.
Hi, I wanted to talk to you about the importance of modifying yoga poses. So, you're a new teacher, say, and you have just finished yoga teacher training and you want to be a teacher of students. This is part of my journey and how I learned what I learned and why I feel so passionate about teaching modifications to students. So I first started, I won't give you the whole rehash because I have talked about this before. You can look back in the Yoga Deep Dive playlist and find a little bit more about my journey into yoga. This is just a continuation of it. So I did my teacher training, my yoga teacher training. I focused in Ashtanga, which is a very physical yoga practice. It's all about vinyasa and movement and flow and not a whole lot of pause in between poses. There are about a 5-count breath pause between each one, but then we move on. And for me, being a former dancer, that really worked for my body. I liked the physicality of the Ashtanga yoga, and I wasn't prepared yet in my yoga journey to sit and meditate. So that is something I'm still working on, to be honest with you, but it's all part of the journey. So I started teaching in my home just for neighbors and kind of locally when I could get a few little jobs in gyms and things like that. And then my husband got accepted into the Air Force, and we left our home in Utah and went to our first base in Las Vegas, Nevada. And this is where I learned, probably maybe cemented my way of teaching. So I don't know. When I used to teach in my home, partly I feel sorry for the students that took pity on me because I think I sort of taught, well, this is the way you do it. So this is the way you do it. This is the way you do Trikonasana. Maybe I suggested the use of a block, but probably only after I saw students struggling, maybe. I've always tried to be able to help. Sure, teachers are helpers, but it's just a personal journey as well. I was new to the poses myself, and so to teach someone how to adapt them to their body was maybe challenging for me. So I ended up in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I had to teach in fitness gyms, which I don't necessarily love, but it was the time of my life. I had kids still at home that weren't in school, so I needed the childcare to take them and leave them in childcare so that I could go teach. And fitness gyms are places that have childcare. A lot of times yoga studios, specific yoga studios, don't have childcare. So that was much more difficult for me to teach in an environment like that. So I ended up at Gold's Gym, which became EOS Fitness or something like that. That doesn't really matter. The point is, my class was called yoga. Yoga. Okay, yoga. If you know anything about yoga, you know that it's this huge spectrum of movement versus 8 limbs of yoga, philosophy, meditation, sitting on the ground and doing yoga that never stops, doing yoga in heat, doing yoga. There's so many things, right? So to call a class yoga is really up to interpretation. And it wasn't like it was leveled. It wasn't called beginning yoga. It wasn't called power yoga. It wasn't called gentle yoga. It was just called yoga. So I had to be able to teach whoever walked in my door. A couple things that I noticed right away. If I had any preconceived notions about the students that walked in the door, I needed to get rid of those right away. Everybody has different strengths. Someone would walk in the door that was a bodybuilder, very strong, but had no flexibility whatsoever. Someone would walk in a door that was older, and I would think, oh, maybe they won't be able to handle this. They've been doing yoga for 60 years. They can handle whatever I throw at them. There were some people who walked in the door who had injuries. They're trying to recover from injuries. Well, guess what? I got to be able to help them with that. And yes, they can still do yoga. It might just look different. So preconceived notions about your students need to go out the door. That is not productive as a teacher. And then I needed to be able to teach everybody, all the ages, all the experience of yoga all at once in 1 hour and make something be meaningful and satisfying for them. And that was the thing that was most beneficial to me. I started teaching people from the ground up. So when we do yoga poses, we talk about them from the ground up. We first get our feet established. Then we start moving up the body energetically up toward the hands. So why couldn't we offer a yoga pose from the ground up? And what I mean is, I would want to move someone maybe into Virabhadrasana A, Warrior One. Well, some people have a really hard time swinging their leg through up to the top of the mat. So I would teach them to come to their knees and step their foot forward. And maybe they're going to stay on their knee in Anjaneyasana or low lunge. So I'm going to teach them that first. And some people go, oh, this feels really good. I'm going to stay right here. And other people like me who wanted more movement might get bored by that being their only option. So then you teach them the next step. You teach them how to stand up into Virabhadrasana A. And for those people who are ready for that, you teach them how to go straight into Virabhadrasana A without having to place their knee on the floor first. But you've already established that putting the knee on the floor is an option and a good option, so that people who are there with their practice stay there. But people who are here with their practice, they go there and they know how to do it and they know how to do it safely. And I think that's the point. That's the thing that I learned, and it has saved me, or not saved me, but it has benefited my personal practice for one, because I also got injured about 2 years ago and I'm still dealing with it. So it's benefited my personal practice, and it's benefited the way that I teach other people and teach students. So in order to reach this whole class, you got to be open to teaching people how to get into things from the ground up. Now, I've had teachers, yoga teachers, criticize me before about, well, your students are never going to improve because you're always teaching them down here. And I disagree. I feel like yoga is a lifelong journey, and it's something that you can do for your entire life. So you need to know how you can adjust the asanas during stages of your life, and that you're still doing yoga and it's still okay. And really, yoga isn't just a physical practice. We know that also. It's a whole philosophy and a way of being and a way of life. So we have to be able to practice our yoga in all different forms, on a chair, with blocks, with straps, against a wall, on our knees, standing, all different ways. And I think a teacher who can show students that yoga can be safe, it can feel good, it can feel stimulating to the muscles and build flexibility, that teacher is going to keep students. The teacher that expects students to be up here when they're just not, though these students down here, they're going to leave because they're not going to feel welcome. They're going to be frustrated. They maybe won't be able to handle thinking. Not every student comes in and says, well, I'm not here yet, but I might be someday. Some people just go, I'm out. It's too hard. And I think that's mostly what people do. I'm out. It's too hard. Sometimes you'll get people who just are like, I'm going to stick with it and wait. That's awesome. Good for them. But most people, I'm out. So if we can teach them how to understand the fundamentals, then we can see them progress. And I have seen students progress. I've seen students who won't lift their leg off the floor in a standing balance. And 6 months later, because they've understood the foundation and they understand how to breathe and how to access their breath, they start increasing that difficulty. They start lifting their leg into Virabhadrasana 3 instead of leaving the foot on the floor in Virabhadrasana A. I've seen students attempt, moving into shoulder stands, headstands, arm balances, when they came into a class thinking that that was not at all for them. But because they feel confident and they've built confidence in their body, they know that their body does have limitations and some days might be more limited than others. They understand that, but they know what their options are. They can adapt to those challenges and still have a great experience. So I feel like if you teach students modifications, you'll be able to help both the beginning student and the advanced student in one class. And sometimes when you have a class that is just called yoga, that's what you have to do. So be open to it. Be okay with showing people how to modify poses. Start them with the modification and then suggest the other things that they can do so that everyone's journeying together. And some people might just stay here, but others might continue on. And then you all meet in the middle when you come into the next asana. And that is how we become a yoga teacher who actually is teaching students. So good luck on your teaching journey. I have more to talk about on my teaching journey, but that's for another time. Thanks for joining.